Hey, what's up guys? My name is Fox and welcome to another video of mine. In this video, we will be going over engravings, a word you probably have encountered already while scouting for Lost Ark related info. I will be covering everything you need to know about engravings in general and also more precisely for Tier 1 aka EU NA launch. Feel free to check the timestamps for specific parts of this video. Let's get started. Let's first answer the most basic question of all. What exactly are engravings? Engravings are extremely strong effects for your character that usually either increase your damage, have some form of utility, or in specific cases can change the playstyle of your class. Let's look at examples for all of those three. Grudge is a 20% damage to boss or higher ranking foes, but you also take 20% more damage from them. Grudge is a prime example of a damage boost engraving which is so powerful that it comes at the price of a negative effect, in this case taking more damage. Not all damage boosting engravings come with negative effects though. For example, the Ambush Master, which increases your damage by 25% when executing back attacks correctly, has no negative effect to it. For utility, one of the prime examples would be Spirit Absorption, which increases your attack and movement speed by 15%. Playstyle changing engravings are usually class specific, like for example the Perfect Suppression, which is a Shadowhunter specific engraving and removes the ability to transform from her kit. It basically changes her playstyle completely. This brings me to the next point of this video: what type of engravings do exist? The most common engravings are the general engravings, which are simply said usable for every class and again, as mentioned earlier, provide some specific damage boost or some form of utility. Examples again here would be Grudge, Ambush Master and Spirit Absorption. All three of those engravings can be used by any class in Lost Ark. Next up we have class specific engravings. Every single class in Lost Ark has access to two engravings that specifically are tailored towards that class. The class engravings are usually extremely powerful and boost a certain playstyle specific to that class. Examples here would be, like mentioned earlier, the Perfect Suppression playstyle for Shadowhunter, which simply disables her ability to transform and therefore is referred to as human playstyle. The second engraving is the Demonic Impulse, boosting critical strike chance during your transformation form. As you can see, class-specific engravings are very strong and very important for most classes. Lastly, there are also negative engravings that exist. They have different effects like making your character slower, reducing their defense, or even reducing their attack power. You preferably want to avoid having any negative engravings. Of course, negative engravings cannot be learned like others, but they can be on your accessories and your ability stone. In order to watch out for that, to not run any negative engravings, you need to know how they exactly work. So let's take a look at how do engravings exactly work. It honestly is a very simple concept. Engravings always have 3 stages or levels to them. To activate one level, you need to accumulate 5 notes or points, whatever you want to call it. So in order to get your engraving to max level, aka level 3, you need a total of 15 notes for it. Same applies to the negative engravings. Some engravings already really shine at level 1, while others really need to reach level 3 in order to be useful. But how do you accumulate those points or notes is the next question that we're going to tackle. First, we're going to talk about your accessories. All of your accessories have notes on them. Depending on the rarity of your accessories, you can have more or less on them. So one really important source of notes are the necklace, your 2 earrings and your 2 rings. The next source of notes for your character are the ability stones. Ability stones also vary in amount of notes they provide, but they are also a very important source for your character. Lastly, another very important part of your notes will be coming from your character equipment screen, where you have 2 slots into which you can put 2 different engravings that you learned, so-called imprints. You learn those engravings by using books, which of course brings me to the next topic of this video. What are books and how do you learn engravings? During your time in Arcasia, you will find many of these books. They will be teaching you an engraving. There are different stages of books, aka common, uncommon, and so on. And the higher you go, the more notes you will be able to apply to your character. In order to really learn an engraving, you need to read, aka consume, 20 books of the same engraving. Let's look at an example. With 20 green books, you'll learn stage 1 of an engraving. Having learned stage 1 equals to 3 notes of that engraving. You can then equip those 3 notes on your character in every slot. Once you have learned the first stage of the engraving, you can then learn the second stage, which equals to 6 notes, which again can be applied twice on your character. Please note that you can only learn the second stage once you have completed the first stage. Let's then have a look at what exactly you can do in order to get these books. Before I start with this, please note that the information in this section is based on the EUNA beta and might change. There might be additional resources for engraving books that they will be adding or changing. With that said, the most common and easiest way is to literally just play the game. Nearly every single content you run in Lost Ark will have a chance at engraving books. While talking about this, please note that you cannot drop class-specific engravings for other classes besides the one that you're playing. Obviously, this is not the most optimal way to gather books for your character, so let's have a look at other ways to get your books. The most common and best way are probably islands. Islands usually have certain quest lines that you can complete and get rewarded with random stuff. Some of them have engraving books. Other islands pop out randomly daily or weekly and give you currency where you then again can buy engraving books. I will be linking Milo's guide for island rewards in the description so you can look at where you can find engraving books. Going over every island in this video would make it way too long. Another source, which I sadly currently have no confirmation on if it will be in the NAEU launch but is available on Russia and Korea, are the Infinite Chaos Dungeon exchanges. Once you have depleted your daily Chaos Dungeon runs, you can continue to run it for other specific currency, which you can then exchange for 20 books of your choosing. This is a very easy and fast way to get engravings you want. Please note, this is only available once per legacy or expedition. Again, I am unsure if this is going to be available on the EUNA launch. The last and easiest source for books will simply be the auction house. Of course, someone else needs to sell them so that they are buyable. I don't expect there to be too many good books on the auction house early on, since everyone wants to use them for themselves. Now that you know what engravings are, where they come from and how you get them, we need to take a look at what your engraving setup should look like. This part of the video is specifically tailored towards tier 1 and I will do some maths to show you what you can obtain during the first few months of the NAEU launch. Again, please note this is information from the beta and could possibly change. Once you reach the final part of tier 1, you will have access to legendary accessories. Legendary accessories can roll up to 3 positive engravings and 3 negative engravings. The positive ones are always split up in 2 and 1. So, our accessories come with the following: 3 notes on the necklace, 3 notes on one earring, and 3 additional notes on the second earring. Lastly, 3 notes on the first ring and 3 additional notes on the second ring. Then we have our 2 learned engravings, aka imprints, which will give us twice 6 notes. Lastly, we have our ability stone, which is obviously RNG on what you will get, but we will go with a common stone that is not too hard to achieve, like a 5-6. So a total of 11 nodes. This gives us a total of 38 nodes, which if split up properly will be 2 level 3 engravings and 1 level 1 engraving. This is a very realistic outlook in tier 1 engraving gearing when optimizing. There's obviously many ways on how to distribute these 38 points. Just as important side notes, you cannot have your class engraving on the ability stone, and any nodes that are not either 5, 10 or 15 are simply wasted. So going above 15 means wasted points, and being at 7 for example will also mean that you wasted 2 nodes. Let's now look at how to make a build work in tier 1 and how to approach building your character in terms of engravings. I personally always suggest to start off with the ability stone, since it's the foundation of your build. In this example, we're going to be gearing a gun lancer with grudge 3, curse stole 3 and combat readiness 1. So first up, we roll our stone, which ended up being a 6 grudge and 5 curse dull stone, which is pretty average and should be easy to get. Next we look at accessories, and preferably one with the engravings mentioned earlier. It is going to be hard and costly to get a good necklace, so in this example we will be settling for a necklace with only grudge 2 because it's simply too expensive to find one with grudge 2, curse dull 1 and our desired stats. And now we ended up lucky and got a ring with grudge 1 and curse dull 2, which is very much realistic. Now as we can see, we already have 9 total notes of grudge. The easiest way to complete our grudge engraving is to simply add the missing 6 points with our imprints. Now we only need to think about our 2 remaining engravings that are missing, which are curse dull and combat readiness. We now need at least one single accessory with both Curse Doll and Combat Readiness, so we're going to assume that we got one with Curse Doll 2 and Combat Readiness 1. Now, we again notice that we do indeed have 9 points in Curse Doll, so we can finish it with our Curse Doll imprint. Now all we need are 2 earrings that both have Combat Readiness 2 on them with any other engraving that we don't care about. And voila! We now achieved a 3-3-1 build with mostly pretty obtainable accessories besides 2 that will be a bit more costly or rare to obtain. This process can be done in various ways and will be easier the more points you have on your ability stone. If you roll a 7-6 stone, you can even have less good accessories and achieve the same. If you want to optimize to the maximum, you can also have a 3-3-2 setup if you want to really go for that. I hope this process showed you the idea behind optimizing your engravings and what to look for when building your character. Please note, even if this video is not talking about any of the bonus stats like crit, swiftness and specialization, they are as important as engravings. So be sure to look out for the right stats on your gear. Now obviously before we end this video, your question is, what engravings should you run? Below in the description, I will be linking a website that links to the most popular engravings in the Russian version of Lost Ark, and I hope that by the time the game is out in an AAU, we will have a dedicated website for NAU engravings, which I will replace with that in the description then. I will not be going over how good engravings are because that always depends on the class you are playing. The only thing I can say is that Grudge is probably a must-have for every DPS in the game. It is the best and strongest DPS engraving existing currently. On that note, we are done with the video. Thank you so much for watching and I hope that you learned something. If you did, I would really appreciate it if you could be leaving a like on the video and maybe consider subscribing to my channel. Furthermore, you can also go to my Twitch channel where I stream regularly and also follow me on Twitter to never miss any important tweets. Any form of follow or subscriber helps me to continue doing what I love, which is content creation. If there was anything in the video that is unclear to you or something you didn't understand, feel free to leave a comment below. If you have any wishes for any content to go over for me for the NAEU launch, also feel free to leave a comment on that. Thank you again so much for watching, wishing you a great day wherever you live.